Hey, welcome to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. Hey, got a very interesting guest today. Hey, do you know anyone that was a child actor? Well, Tyler was. Got Tyler Foley on here. So he's been in film, he's been in television, he's been in stage performer, did a little bit of everything. And he was in Freddy versus Jason. We've all seen that one, right? Door to Door, Carrie, and the musical Ragtime. He's currently the managing director of Total Buy-In and the author of the number one selling book, The Power to Speak Naked. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, Joe. Relentless positivity. How could I not?
That's right, man. You're the right guy for the show. So I want to start here because I'm always curious about that. So you're a child actor. How did you get into child acting?
To be honest, the universe conspired to get me there. I'm a born performer. If you ask my mom, I was tap dancing in the womb. I was always that kid, right? At family events like holidays and stuff, the family be over, I'd be the look at me, let me play the piano before I even knew how to play the piano. I remember getting a magic kit when I was like 3 or 4 and wanting to show everybody how I could make the egg levitate and I could make my wand dance and I could hide, get coins to disappear into my arm and stuff like all that stuff. I was always performing. And then when I was 6 years old, I got the chance to be in a couple of high school, or not high school, elementary school plays, right? Like the little tiny pageant plays that they put on. I got to play Peter Rabbit for an Easter play, and I got to play Joseph in the Christmas pageant. And it kind of just ignited this spark in me, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one of those things that where my teachers took notice of it and kind of pulled my parents aside and said, and Tyler really enjoys this. This might be a thing to explore. And between the Christmas pageant and the Easter pageant, my father passed away.
Mm.
And when you're 6 years old, it's really hard to process the finality of death and really what that means. And so I was young. So externally, I think my mom was worried that I was emotionally shut off. The reality is that I was emotionally stunted. I was 6. I didn't really know
Right.
how to process emotions. And I think out of worry and concern and just needing something for me to do, right? Like my mom was at that point now a widow and 2 young children. I was 6. My sister was 2, just coming up to her 3rd birthday. And here's mom stuck with us on her own. I think she needed something to get me so that she could do her, and acting was that thing. So my uncle had overheard a casting director because he worked for the city of Calgary, and the main arts performance center was just across the street from the city hall. And he worked at city hall, so he was a perennial bachelor. Like the man, I don't think he's cooked a meal for himself in his life. So he's always constantly at restaurants and takeout and stuff like that. So he was at a restaurant and overheard a casting director complaining about how hard can it be to find a small kid to play Tiny Tim. And he kind of was like, eavesdropping and goes, I don't mean to interrupt, but how small is small? Because it's hard to tell on camera here, but I'm 5'8" and 140 pounds, and this is me fully grown, right? When I was small, I was always the kid at the very front row, middle center of any school photo because I was the tiniest kid in the class. And so I was built to play small, tiny, young children. And that's what I did. I ended up getting to play Tiny Tim, and then from there, theater just became my life. I went to a fine arts high school in my teens, got into film and television in my late teens, and really made a career out of it for many, many years. It was phenomenal.
So as a child actor, what does your schedule look like? I mean, there's school, and do you work around that? How does that work with your schedule?
It depended on the production.
Okay.
And so a lot of times your rehearsal is going to be right. Like actors are never just an actor. Even your most professional, staunch, dedicated actor is still waiting tables at Denny's somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of times rehearsals are scheduled for late afternoon, early evening. So it's particularly with the kids, your disruption really, and you're hardly ever on stage. So they only bring you in, right? They're going to workshop and rehearse the scenes that need to be dealt with up front. And so they're not really bringing you on regularly until closer to the run. And performances are almost always in the evening or weekends. It's very, very seldom that you have a midweek matinee. So it was pretty easy to work it around. And so yeah, it was school and then show, school and then show on the times where I would have a production. But that was, once or twice, 3 times a year tops. Right. There's not a lot of stage productions that require children. And then when you get into film and television, unless you're a recurring role, which I never was, you're a day player, you come on, maybe you have a week or two where you film, if you're a principal performer or a guest star for that episode. But then you're done. And the nice thing is too, whenever you're a kid on stage or on film, they need to bring a tutor on for you too. So they've got, like, as part of your call is tutelage time, where they have to provide schooling for you, which was remarkably helpful for me going through school, because then I got one-on-one attention, and anything that I was struggling with, I had like a dedicated tutor, particularly when I was doing the theatrical runs, where I could have somebody help me
Right.
with my studies. So it was great.
That's cool, man. So, yeah, so you found your thing at an early age, and things are going well, and then 1997, everything kind of comes crashing down. What happened? Tell us what happened then.
Yeah. So New Year's Eve, 1996, I was the DD for my group of friends, and I was driving and taxiing people all over everywhere to various New Year's Eve parties. And I got home early morning of 1997, January 1st, 97, went to bed, woke up, a good, decent time for being out until 4 or 5 in the morning. I think I got up around 10 in the morning, and the left side of my body didn't work. And to this day, that we're not really sure why. I call it a medical incident. Some people have called it a mini stroke, some a stroke. Um, Originally it was diagnosed as a Bell's palsy. The only problem is none of those things actually explain what happened, because if it was a stroke, I shouldn't have been able to regain use of my face or my body for that matter. Mini stroke is not really a thing. Like they happen, but the residuals shouldn't have been as long lasting as they were. A Bell's palsy would have only affected my face, not my entire body, and my entire body was affected. So we don't know what happened. What I do know is that I woke up, tried brushing my teeth, and couldn't keep the toothpaste in my mouth. And it was really hard to get up the stairs because I couldn't feel the left side of my body. I had this really weird kind of
Wow.
limp happening. There was function still, but I couldn't feel anything. And a lot of the nerve endings had relaxed. So my face, I did look like a stroke victim for a little bit, where the left side of my face just kind of hung and drooped, and nothing would work. And no matter what, it was really hard to eat. I remember for the first month hating the world because I'd have to drink everything through a straw and then hold
Oh
my
my
mouth shut.
goodness.
But the silver lining to it, and I, as somebody who can, has written a book called Relentless Positivity, you can appreciate this. I don't necessarily look for the positives in life, but I always look for the grace. And one of the things that did come out of that was I had a really good core group of friends, and it was real nice to know that my friends were there through thick and thin.
Yeah.
And we're at, like, my core group of friends that I grew up with in high school, I'm still in contact with today. And I don't know many people who went to high school who can count even 2 of their friends from high school that they're still in contact with. And I can count like 20 or 25.
Wow.
And we are geographically diverse at this point. Like, I have friends who live in Thailand. I have friends who live in Dubai. I've seen them all in the last decade, hung out, like we chat regularly. And even the ones that have stayed local, like I visit my high school friends. I'm seeing at least one of them once a month. And so it was nice to know that I had that peer group, that support, that community. It also gave me my drive again to act, because I'd become really complacent with the craft, because it wasn't, you say, well, I found my thing, I found my passion. I didn't really actually until that moment,
Oh
because
wow.
going through school, it was a thing that I did, and it was a part of my identity, but it wasn't my sole focus. But when it gets taken away from you, when somebody says you no longer can do this thing because your body doesn't work, that gave me this ignited drive, first of all, to get my body back functionally, and secondly, to really make acting a profession. That really spurred my drive. So I hadn't even graduated high school, and I'd already moved out to Vancouver. I live in Calgary, which is inland in Canada. I'm basically north of Montana, and I moved to Vancouver, so north of Seattle, and on my own. 17 years old,
Oh wow.
moved out. I hadn't even turned 18, wasn't even legal age in the province, and I, you know, had dedicated myself to, this is the thing that I'm going to do. I believe strongly in immersion, right? Like, if you're going to do a thing, and
Right.
do it all the way, or don't do it at all. And so I knew that if I remained in Calgary, I was going to be a big fish in a very, very, very tiny pond. And the only way to truly test myself and know if I could make it professionally as a performer, as an actor, was to go out where nobody knew me, where I hadn't been doing this since I was 6 years old, and where the like two casting directors in town knew that, had my number on speed dial, and knew how to reach my agent and just sole source me as a casting choice. So that was really critical for me, and I don't think I would have had that if it weren't for the incident. Because it stripped everything away, and when that happens, priorities really crystallize.
I bet. So you make this decision, but what do you physically do from there? Just start fixing your body, start fixing your career. What were the steps?
Well, so first thing, I needed to get mentally right. Well, as a teenager, particularly growing up in theater, I am most comfortable in a blank black box. It sounds weird, but when you look at it, what a theater is structured like all the walls are painted black because it absorbs the light, and you don't want things bouncing or reflecting. So I've found a lot of comfort being in a black room, to the point where when I was 14, I moved from my upstairs bedroom into the basement bedroom and painted all the walls black. And the bedroom that I moved into is actually an addition to the house. So the concrete foundation was my bedroom, and on the far wall. So I ended up literally living in a black concrete box, which I loved. It was comfort for me. But when I woke up in that environment, on New Year's Day, 97, 17 years old, it didn't help with my mental state,
I'm sure. Yeah.
because I'm literally in a dull, cold, dark place. and and at the time, it was over Christmas break, so I didn't have my friends. I couldn't drive anywhere because my left leg didn't work, and I drove a 1984 Honda Accord 5-speed standard,
Oh,
so I couldn't clutch. Um, Although, another bonus to the whole thing, I was frustrated that I couldn't, so I actually learned how to. How you can drive a standard without ever actually engaging the clutch. If you rev it properly, you can disengage by just popping the thing out, and then if you time your when you shift into gear, you can actually shift without clutching. It's really horrible for the transmission, and
yeah.
I ground through an entire transmission learning how to do it, and doing it for the 6 months that I needed to. But I did learn that. But yeah, so first of all, it was a lot of mental work, and I worked with some really, really good doctors who helped me get on top of my mental game. One of the blessings of not knowing what it was because I never did end up getting a final diagnosis. There was no recommended treatment course, so I was free to do or try anything. And I did. I had laser acupuncture, regular acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractic work, physiotherapy, um, Eastern medicines, herbal medicines, chakra work, crystals, and then traditional, like, you know, uh, um, those electrodes that they put on you, and the like muscle stimulus. Um, I had all kinds of stuff. I was prodded and poked more than I've ever been in my entire life for like 10 months straight. But the nice thing is gradually and slowly things started to happen. And a lot of that, I'm sure, had to do with a positive mental outlook, not knowing what the future was. So the future could be written however I wanted it. And it really grew from there. And like I said, when I moved out to Vancouver, I hadn't even graduated school. So at that point, we're 6 months into the whole thing. I hadn't fully rehabilitated, but it was one of those things where I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I was going to go and I was going to do it. It was a good year until I could get to about 95% functionality. But it was within 6 months, I had feeling back in my extremities. It was just my face that didn't work right. And I figured, well, at the very least, I could play stroke victims.
There
right?
you go.
So if I had to go niche, I was going niche, but I was going to work on getting it back. And luckily I did.
Man, you could have been the guy though, like the stroke guy for the
Yeah.
whole movie industry. Maybe it's
right.
well, missed opportunity right there.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah, but I guess you're doing all right anyway. So speaking of doing all right, I want to get into your book, which
Yeah.
the cover and the title are amazing. If you did that or whoever did that did an amazing. You guys got to look that up on Amazon.
For anybody who could see any video, there
yes.
you go.
Oh
Yeah.
man, talk about eye catching right there. So the power to speak naked is the name of it. And did you come up with that title? Did you have help with that?
I did come up with the title. I mean, it was a brainstorming session with my team, and I was the one to say it. The team was the one to glob onto the fact that was the thing that needed to be the title. And yes, I love the cover. So a quick shout out to Lorraine Shelba, who designed my cover for me. She was able to translate a vision that I had in my head. It was in very short order and get the mock-up done. She had no time to do that. I was doing a speaking tour in Texas and Florida in late, I think it was 2018. And she literally had about 3 days to put it together. And originally the cover was very ego driven. It was a cover of my face, it's my headshot. And I was all like, power to speak naked stuff. And it wasn't really serving the content of the book. And so she was like, we'd had all these mock-ups and I hated them all. And she goes, well, what was your vision for it? And I explained it to her. And she goes, oh, I think give me a day. And literally we had the conversation and she sent me the mock-up for that just as I was about to board a plane for Houston. And so when I sent her off a quick email, I think I was actually talking to her on the phone going through customs. The customs agents really didn't like me as I was clearing through security. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm with my graphic designer. It's okay. No. I know. I need to put the phone down. Lorraine, I'm going to put the phone down for a second. And I went through security, still having the conversation with her. I'll never forget it. But when we were brainstorming the idea, the book was really came from all my training material. And I have hours and hours and hours and hours of video footage of me delivering various training modules on how to public speak. And what we had done was transcribed all the audio from the video. Like we pulled the audio and then transcribed it. And then that was compiled to become the book. And so when we were brainstorming a title for it, we'd had a whole bunch of things that had come up as placeholder ones, and I wasn't really happy about them. And so it's really a book on advice. So I got my team together and I said, what is, some advice that you've gotten over public speaking? Because I figured maybe that would trigger an idea. And one of my team members had said, well, when you're going to speak, if you're going to get over nervousness, you picture your audience naked. And I went on this tirade about how it is the worst advice ever. I don't even know why people have put it in, that it's masochistic, it doesn't serve your audience, that it is an unnecessary brain exercise, that everything that I preach, picturing your audience naked, is the antithesis of it. Like it is the total opposite. Like just don't. It is wrong. And I remember finishing this rant saying, I would rather give somebody the power to speak naked on stage than to have them try to picture the audience naked. And as soon as I said it, everybody was like, ooh.
That's the one. That's the one.
Oh, there you go. The power to speak naked. It touches on all the points. And then as we started to explore the title, it really does have a lot of layers and a lot of different meanings. Cursory, I do really strongly believe that with enough practice and with enough conviction and with the true message that anybody could go up on stage wearing the emperor's new clothes, not only not care themselves, but the audience wouldn't care either, because their message would be so engaging and so powerful that the audience wouldn't even be paying attention, that they wouldn't even, it wouldn't even be a thing that registered on their radar. It would just be a presentation. And at, you know, on the very surface level, that's what that title means. But I also believe strongly that we need to be able to give presentations in their raw, naked form, that you don't need the PowerPoint, that you don't need props, you don't need audio visual, you don't need laser lights, you don't all that stuff is unnecessary. We should be able to do what you and I are doing right now and just have a single conversation one-on-one. And if you can have that conversation one-on-one with somebody, you can have that conversation one-on-many with people, but you don't need the gimmicks. And then on a very sub level, if you want to give a very powerful, very engaging presentation, it's important that you speak the raw, naked truth, right? You expose yourself and allow the world to see you unclothed, metaphorically. And those are really when we have the most connection with our audience. That's when we have the most change can come from those presentations. So for a multitude of reasons, we came up with the power to speak naked. And I'm grateful every day that I get to talk about it or look at the cover, because it brings a smile to my face every time I think of how it came together and just the process. I'm truly blessed to have
That's
it out
awesome,
there.
man. Yeah, it's so well done. So well done. So I always thought that was weird advice, telling someone that everyone in the audience is naked. I'm not trying to make connections and eye contact with a bunch of naked people, right? That's just a weird
No,
way to look at it.
well,
So, yeah.
and it is. I think the idea, because technically, right, so it's been skewed. So I think sometimes they say picture people in their underwear.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think we've all had that, so whether it's naked or underwear or whatever, we've all had that nightmare where we've shown up in class,
Oh yeah.
right? Or you're in public space and you're like, you're not wearing anything. You're like, oh, and it's uncomfortable. And I think, because I have no idea, because I think it's horrible advice. I think the idea is to gain power over your audience by picturing them in discomfort to somehow make yourself comfortable,
Mm.
which again to me seems completely backwards to what is a truly powerful speaker. And that is, you should cherish your audience. Anytime you have a chance to speak in front of people, that is a sacred gift. And they should be your focus in a positive way. They should leave your presentation better than you found them. And so for all of those reasons, picturing them in a state of discomfort, in a state of disease, in something less than what they came to you at is horribly backwards when it comes to speaking. So for a million reasons, I strongly advise against it. And let alone the mental power, right? Like if I'm trying to think about the content that I want to deliver and how I want to deliver it and where the beats are and the time span that I have to do this, and is my audience engaged with me? Those are all things that require mental attention, mental focus, and real dedication. So if I'm spending time trying to do this false imprint on them of taking away their clothes, that's a mental exercise that's pulling away from how I can actually truly serve them. So no, I don't like it. I
Yeah.
don't
Stop
like it,
doing that.
Joe.
Stop doing it. Stop doing
I
that. All right.
do
So
not like green
I
eggs and
mean,
ham.
I mean, the
I do
surveys
not like.
all say people fear public speaking more than they fear death. But you think
Yeah.
it's something beyond that. So what do they actually fear though?
Well, so I thank you for bringing it up, because I don't know where that statistic came from. I've seen it multiple times. It actually led to that famous Jerry Seinfeld joke that the fear of public speaking surpasses the fear of death, which is true for the most part. And so that means that people would rather be sit in the casket than giving the eulogy, which I think is a very apropos observation, because how horrible is that is an actual reality. But the fact of the matter is, people are not actually afraid of public speaking. If we were afraid of public speaking, commerce would collapse. Like there's no way. If you've ever been to a restaurant and ordered food, you were able to speak in public. And if you didn't know your wait staff, you spoke to a complete stranger. And if you got the food that you wanted, you were able to ask for something that you wanted and get it. So this notion that we're afraid to speak in public, or that we're afraid to speak to strangers, or that we're afraid to ask for what we want, are all completely and totally decimated. If you've ever been to a restaurant and ordered food and had that food delivered to you, the reality is, because I can already hear your audience screaming, wait, whoa, Joe, stop Tyler right now. Because at a restaurant, the people in the restaurant are not looking at me. Unless you've gone to a themed restaurant and it was your birthday and they all sang happy birthday and clapped along, and then the restaurant was looking at you. But the reality is that anonymity in a restaurant, even though you're speaking in public, people aren't looking at you. The reason that you feel discomfort when people are looking at you is you're afraid of public judgment. And it's that fear of judgment that if I speak my opinion, or if I speak up at all, or if I somehow am not as educated as I would like to be on the subject, and people know, they'll know that I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, or whatever, all these stories that we're telling ourselves in our head, are exactly that. They're stories in our head. And the reality is that the audience is very likely judging you, but not negatively. We want speakers to succeed, or we wouldn't show up at that venue. Like, we wouldn't be in the boardroom, we wouldn't be in the auditorium, we wouldn't be in the theater, we wouldn't show up to that thing, we wouldn't be on the Zoom, we wouldn't be downloading the podcast if we didn't want to hear the message. So if you have an audience, they're on your side, or they just wouldn't be there. And you wouldn't have the opportunity to speak if you weren't the expert.
Right.
Because we don't ask second best to present, we ask the best person to present. And so if you've been asked, there is a reason. There was nobody else that could do it at that time. So you're the authority and the audience is on your side. So this perception that they're going to negatively judge us as an audience is false. We're the ones that are judging us. And so it's flipping that story, that script that is playing in our minds, to say, you are the authority. Nobody else could do this better than you. And know that I struggle with this even as a professional speaker. I actually have to present at a university tomorrow. And it is a modification of a program that I've delivered many, many times, but in a format that I've never done before. And part of me is going, I don't know this material. Who am I to present it? And then I have to remind myself, look, if there was somebody else who could do it better, it's a university. They have reach.
Yeah.
They would have gotten somebody else, but they didn't. They got me. And so my job is to take this material and present it in the absolute best way that audience is served. And here's the thing. They don't know the presentation. They don't know what I'm going to say. All I have to do is make sure that, again, they're a sacred gift to me. I need to have them walk away from that presentation better than they came. They need to leave more informed than when they arrived. That could be one thing. All they have to do is take away one thing. And I know for a fact that in this presentation, I have at least 5 key takeaways that land well. So are they going to leave better than I found them? Absolutely. Do I still feel trepidation in going into this environment because it's a presentation that I haven't actually had a chance to explore? Yes. But I also know that in order for me to be confident, I need to be competent. And the only way to be competent is to do a thing over and over and over again. So this is going to be the first time for me to present this material. But there's always a first time. Think of the first time you rode a bus by yourself, or the first time you got on a 2-wheel bike and had the training wheels taken off. Your first kiss. How nervous were you the first time you did any of these things? Are they nervous now? When we can do a thing over and over and over and over again, those butterflies start to dissipate. And so, yeah, I have some worry going into it, but I don't have stage fright doing it. I don't need to be afraid of this audience. What at this point, my worry is making sure that I'm serving the audience. And that's one of the quickest ways to get over stage fright and this fear of judgment is Fear of judgment is ego driven. It's me, 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 me. So when I'm going, oh, can I do this? Am I able to? That's going to play negatively into my story. When I go, how can I best serve this audience? How can I show up given the limitations that I have in this? How do I make this the best presentation to set myself up for success so that the next, where are my learning opportunities in this? How can I do this better? And it's embracing that will allow me to go and present and do my best and get feedback. I'm having this, one of the things that I've arranged with the university is that this is a pilot project. So they understand that I've set myself up for success. They understand this is a new thing for all of the parties involved. It's new for me to deliver this material. It's new for them to receive this material. So I want feedback on it. Where were my successes? Where are my areas of improvement? And knowing that we're all going to grow and learn together, again, helps take some of the burden off of me. And that can be true for any presentation, even if it's in the boardroom and you're giving, Q3 sales statistics, you can still be upfront and set yourself up for success saying, this is, I've never presented this information before. How did I do? What do you need to know? And really engage your audience that way.
Oh, man, that's awesome information because we're all going to have to present sometime, right? If you have a job, chances are you're going to do some kind of, you might as well do it right. So you got to go check out the book. Where's the best place they can pick up the book?
The book is available anywhere. So for me, the best place that they could go is their local bookshop.
There you go.
Because, particularly over the last 2 years, they are very likely struggling to get business. And my publisher, Morgan James, has done an incredible job of making my book available and accessible in many, many countries and, on bookshelves, brick and mortar. So my first suggestion to people would be, go to your bookstore, and if they don't have a copy of it, ask them to order it in. It won't take very long, and support mom and pop. Support your brick and mortar store. If you're one of those people, you're like, yeah, Tyler, that's nice, but I want things to come instantly. I like add to cart and go.
Yep.
Jeff Bezos' site has my book, has your book too, Joe.
Sure.
I know,
yeah.
we can get it there, but Jeff just flew to space in a phallic shaped rocket. I don't know that he needs more of our money. But what I do know is there's a wonderful website called bookshop.org, and that will connect you digitally to your local bookstore. And if they're interested in my book, they can get it cheaper on bookshop.org than they can in a regular bookstore. So if they want to save a little bit of money, still support a mom and pop shop, and bonus, all proceeds of book sales from bookshop.org pulls a percentage of it and pools it into a fund so that your local mom and pop shop, if they are struggling, can apply for financial relief and financial aid. And bookshop.org to date has raised just over $16 million to support your local bookstores. So, it's got a charitable component. And if you purchase my book, percentage of the proceeds go to Habitat for Humanity. So if you buy my book, you're supporting Habitat for Humanity. If you buy it through bookshop.org, you're also going to support your local bookshop. If you buy it through bookshop.org, you'll save yourself a little bit of money, and everybody wins.
So many wins.
Save a little bit of money.
Win. So many wins. There's no phallic shaped rockets. I mean, there's wins across the board.
Exactly.
Man.
So I would strongly encourage everybody to go to bookshop.org, or if they have to, they can go to Jeff's site or they can go to Barnes and Noble. But try walking into a local bookstore first.
That's awesome, man. That's good on you for highlighting that. So also, if they want to work with you or they want to learn from your coaching or any of that, what's the best site to go to for that?
Well, I will tell them in a second.
Okay.
In a second. But I would strongly advise them first, if they are getting value out of listening to Relentless Positivity, if they are regularly tuning in, and if they're listening and they're like, hey, Joe's bringing me good stuff every week, well, then I think they should reward you by giving you a 5-star review. So whatever device they're listening to this now, I want them to hit pause and give you a 5-star review, or give you the like or the thumbs up or the share. and be specific on the review. Like actually write, like, what was your favorite episode? Who, what was a guest that Joe had on that really resonated with you? What has Joe said? What's some of the content that Joe has brought to you? Have you gone to Jeff Bezos's site and purchased Joe's book? Because Relentless Positivity is a really, really good read. So if you haven't done that, maybe do that too. And what did you like about the book? So, if they could support you by giving you a 5-star review, then as a reward, if they come over to SeanTylerFoley.com, and Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, SeanTylerFoley, I will hook them up with a whole bunch of free stuff. So we've got the Endless Stages Facebook group, which is free training, a live engaged community. We have really, really good members in there. I come live every Tuesday for 20 minutes at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern time, to give a live training, usually from the questions that come from the membership over the course of the week. So, the more engaged you are, the more you will be served within that community. As a part of Endless Stages, when you sign up for Endless Stages, you get a free digital copy of my book. So now you can bypass having to pay the $17.95 or $16.50 to bookshop.org. You can just get a free PDF download. And if you actually want to get a physical copy, then we can get that to you many different ways. And we're also going to give you access to my Drop the Mic training programs, giveaways. Like we make it all available. So if anybody wants to come over to SeanTylerFoley.com, SeanTylerFoley.com, say Tyler sent you. I'm happy to do all that, but only Joe, if they give Relentless Positivity a 5-star review. No review, no free stuff for you.
Oh man, I appreciate you, man. Good looking out. You're looking out for the bookshops. You're looking out for me. We need to reward you as well. But so I just got one thing left before we get going. There's many theories out there. There's controversy on the internet. I need to know from an inside source. Freddy versus Jason, who won?
Oh, for sure. Freddy won.
Freddy, for sure. Yeah.
Freddy won.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we want to say that Jason in the end defeated him, came out of his dream or whatever, Crystal Lake, blah, blah, blah. No. You can't kill Freddy Krueger.
No, Freddy's the man. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this is awesome, man. Appreciate the awesome content. Appreciate the shout outs for me and bookshop.org. So we need to reward you. Come back. Get in the free stuff, man. Go get your free stuff. What's it going to hurt? No shipping, no handling, none of that stuff. Hey, thank you so much. I know everyone's going to get value from this, and that's what you're trying to bring to people. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it was my joy and my pleasure, Joe. And I'm happy to come anytime.
Awesome, man. If I can ever help you, let me know. Great speaking with you.